You're very welcome.
Wow, what a busy schedule.
Yeah, this is just what we do, though. This is
Yeah.
kind of who we are now. So
Yeah, I just want to start, before I even welcome the audience, and thank you for not wearing a tie today.
yeah, you're very
Although
welcome.
I was prepared.
Just in case.
I even had my Tyler Christmas present, which is an
Oh,
official.
it's the official Utah tie. Yeah,
and
you got the bees on there and everything.
I'm very
So,
pleased with that.
That's good. That's good.
Anyway, welcome everybody to the county seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. We are at the annual confab for the Utah League of Cities and Towns, where Governor Spencer Cox has just made a noontime address. And, with over 248 cities, every one of which I believe you visited during the campaign, we welcome you at your 100-day mark in your administration to the county seat.
Thank you, Chad. It's great to be back with you. It's been a while.
It has indeed. It's hard to just kind of like take. For us, it's like, okay, we want to know how he's done, and you're already being critiqued quite a bit about your efforts. But really, you've only been in just a little over. It's been what, three months and a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
So, how do you feel you've done so far?
Well, ultimately the people of Utah will decide that, but I'm very proud of my team. I've built, one of the things that people don't think about when you become governor is you have to bring in this cabinet, senior advisors. You build that team out, and we were so fortunate to get the very best in the state. And the feedback I'm getting from people, from mayors, city councilmen, others, is that they're seeing us more than they've ever seen us before. We're working on these issues. It's not just campaign fodder and highfalutin stuff. It's the real stuff. We're hitting the ground, and vaccines was the main focus. Knowing that that's how we get back to normal, we had to focus on getting vaccines out. And earlier this week, we got all the way up to number 4 in the percentage of vaccines actually put into arms, and that shows that our team is doing incredible work.
There has been a lot of effort and there has been a lot of resistance. What do you have to say to the people watching this show about the vaccine?
Well, as someone who grew up, spent my whole life, still lives in rural Utah with my family, I understand some of those concerns. We're a little more rugged, we're a little more hesitant, especially when it comes to the federal government and anything related there. But what I can tell you is that this is our way out of the pandemic, and that it is safe. I got mine. I've had both of the vaccines. I'm doing great, and we're seeing numbers come down, and everybody wants to get through this, and this is our chance. So what I would say is I plead with you, go talk to your doctor, go talk to the medical providers that you trust, talk to them about it, talk to other people that have gotten it, make sure you feel comfortable, and then get your vaccine.
Are you willing to divulge which one you got?
I am willing to divulge. Yeah, I got Pfizer because that's all that they were offering in Spanish Fork, which was about halfway home for me, where we got ours. I was going to get Johnson & Johnson because we were worried about hesitancy around that. It's the single dose, but more and more people wanted Johnson & Johnson, and so I said, well, great. They would have had to ship one in special for me, and I didn't want any special treatment, so I got what was there, and it was Pfizer.
Good. You got through both of them.
Yeah.
No problem.
No problem. We didn't have any reactions. Neither my wife nor I had any at all. So we felt great. We were worried. We heard with the second one sometimes that first 24 hours you may have a little bit of a reaction, which actually means it's working. That's your immune system kicking up to gear and getting ready so it remembers it the next time.
What have you done in the first 100 days to incentivize that growth that particularly rural Utah needs so badly? You again alluded to that in your presentation today.
Yeah, well, there are some people that don't want any growth, right? And what I want is the type of growth that's good, and especially that is good for our kids and grandkids so that they can stay in these areas. I hate that we continue to export our kids. And so what we've done is, in fact, I can unabashedly say that over these first 100 days, and especially the legislative session, I have to give a shout out to my legislators, especially my rural legislators. We've done more for infrastructure and for economic development than ever in 100 days. So we have record infrastructure investment, over $1 billion that is set aside for infrastructure, and much of that will come to rural Utah as well. And then we basically changed the way we do economic development here. We passed what's called the Red TIF bill, the Rural Economic Development Bill, and it's going to allow us. This is something I campaigned on. Was that look? Why are we giving these incentives to companies to locate on the Wasatch Front when there's no employees because unemployment's so low? There's too much growth. They're having growth pressures.
Smokestack issues.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's do that in rural Utah. So this Red TIF bill allows us to give better incentives, bigger incentives for companies that are willing to move to rural Utah, not just from other states, companies from the Wasatch Front that are willing to relocate or expand into rural Utah. And then the other thing we did is we are moving state of Utah jobs into rural Utah. Over 60 so far in just our first 100 days that are being relocated into rural Utah.
Is there some resistance to that?
Not much, no. I mean, we get a little bit of that, but really not much. Again, because we're having a hard time finding employees on the Wasatch Front. And so let's expand. Also now, because we can telework and people can work from home, we'll be able to move even more of those jobs.
That becomes one of the issues. And my list of questions, obviously.
Yeah, keep going. I'll stop talking.
No, that's fine. They come from counties. So one of the questions is infrastructure like broadband, electronic, gas, water, electricity. Those are the things that will bring manufacturing. Broadband will bring service. How much is dedicated towards those things?
Yeah, so and I apologize for not having the numbers right in front of me, but we have a tremendous amount of money going to all of those, and more broadband money coming in. That's part. The other piece of this that we haven't talked about is the federal piece and what's happening with the infrastructure bill that's being debated in Congress right now. That's likely to bring even more money to rural areas for all of those types of things. We reestablished the broadband office that had been defunded several years ago. Mm-hmm. That's back now, which will allow us to help coordinate that funding, get it out to our rural counties, get broadband where it needs to go. But my big focus was on roads, natural gas, water, all of those areas that are so critical, because you're exactly right. That's where we get the manufacturers and others that are willing to come to rural Utah. And I met with the Manufacturing Association, talked about what they needed to do to get out into rural Utah, and they're desperate. They need land, and they need water, and they need people, and they're having a hard time finding those three things.
So any of these communities that sit along I-70 or I-15 really become feasible locations if they can get the infrastructure.
Yeah,
there.
they absolutely do. And I would go even even those that are off of the major interstates. We're seeing some good growth along 89. We're seeing good growth along Highway 6 in Price, and those areas where they've had some manufacturers that have located there and expanded in recent months. So Utah's going to benefit from the manufacturing renaissance that's coming back with supply chains being disrupted because of COVID and the China issue.
One question in specific that came up more than once in our polling was, what are we going to do about logging and timber and forest sales and its relationship to fire? Do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure, yeah. So we know we have to actively manage our land better. We've talked about the fact, we just had a meeting where we talked about this yesterday. The mismanagement of the forest since the early 1900s and especially into the 60s and 70s have led to where now we have forests that are dying. Of course, we're seeing these massive wildfires every year, and the beetle kill. You and I have been talking about this for 9 years now.
Well, even when you were a legislator, we were talking about it.
We went on an ATV ride and talked about the beetle kill, and it's a lose-lose, and we're trying to turn that around. The problem is, even now we have these management plans where we're coactively working with the federal government. Together, we're working on these big projects, but we don't have the infrastructure because all the logging infrastructure is gone now. We've only got a couple places now that are processing.
How do you fix that?
Yeah, this is an issue, and we've met with the federal government because nobody's willing to invest in that infrastructure, right? Building the plants.
Yeah,
that they
because
need to
when they do,
process it.
then things change and there's
Exactly.
no wood.
So we need long-term commitments. That's what we've got to get to. We've got the short-term commitments now, but we need the long-term commitments. So that's one of the things that we're working on. And then can we use some of this money to incentivize the building of that? We're also looking at it in meat processing, by the way, on the ag side. That's another hole we have. So lumber processing and meat processing, we need more of that infrastructure to support the local economies that will benefit from that.
Do you think you'll get some buy-in from the current administration on getting that long-term for both grazing and for forests?
So it's hard, but here's why I think we have a chance. Because it's not just Utah that's on fire every year, right? California is burning up too, and so they're probably going to listen to California a little more than they're going to listen to Utah, for being blunt. But California has the same problems, and they need the same solutions. We need some short-term solutions there, and logging the right way, grazing the right way, are two of those solutions. And so I think they're more open to it than they were, 6 years ago.
Well, we've obviously got to pay for this show, so we're going to take a quick break. Okay. We're going to come back and let's delve into the public land issue a little bit.
Perfect.
You're watching the County Seat. We're coming from St. George, Utah League of Cities and Towns annual confab. We'll be back with the County Seat in just a minute. Welcome back to the County Seat. We're talking with Governor Spencer Cox. Boy, I have to retrain myself.
So do I. I often refer to governor as the other guy.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about public land, okay? The Secretary of Interior was just out here. You had a chance to talk with her, express some of the concerns about Utah. Do you see opportunities or challenges in the future in how we handle these monuments? What do you think the scope is?
Well, I think there's a combination of opportunities and challenges. The challenge that we all know and are aware of is that it's very likely that this administration expands significantly the monuments. I don't think we're kidding anybody, but we did have a wonderful meeting. She's a delightful person. She's very smart. She gets it. She understands the different challenges and opportunities, I think, to work together. We're pushing really hard for a congressional solution here. We think we can get it done if they'll allow us to do it, and so we'll see what happens. The opportunities, though, that are there, and that's where we really wanted to focus, because they'll do what they're going to do, and then we'll likely have a legal challenge if they do that. And the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has basically said he welcomes that challenge. He thinks that monuments are too big, that they're not following the Antiquities Act the way that it was intended, and so we'll let the courts decide that. But the opportunities are there for us to work more closely together with all sides and find some wins for everybody. When we talk to the tribes, for example, around Bears Ears, they want logging. They need the firewood. They want grazing. That's really important to them.
Oh, incredibly!
And they want to be able to use the resources of the land to benefit the tribes, and they should. And we support that. The problem is that a monument designation doesn't allow them to do those things, right? And so that's where finding common ground, I think, gives us. And by the way, the other side of this also wants to protect those sacred antiquities that are there. Nobody wants those destroyed or developed at all. So I think that the things we have in common are much greater than the divides.
But how do you overcome that obstacle when you have members of the tribe and members of local government down there that are part of the Navajo Nation saying, well, our treaties are with the United States, not with the state of Utah?
Sure.
And yet they'll acknowledge that the state's done more to try and advance stuff than the federal government in the last little while, like on issues of water. So what is your message to them?
Well, that is the challenge, right? And it's not going to be, you're not going to overcome that overnight. We recognize that. And so it's going to take a lot of hard work by people really, really trying to work together. And Congressman Curtis is a perfect example of this. I mean, he doesn't just give it lip service. He's visited all 5 of the members of the tribal coalition. He's gone to their tribal lands. He's participated in their ceremonies, and he continues to go back. And that's, I've been meeting with them after becoming governor. I've met with the Navajo Nation for years and years and years, but with the tribes even outside of Utah that have an interest in that land. And that's where we're going to have to build trust, right? And the way you build trust is with time, with effort, working together and trying to help them. That's why this water issue, Navajo water, was such a big deal. I've been working on this for decades. We finally got it done. We finally got Congress to come along. Utah is paying into this, doing their part. We're going to be able to get water projects out to many of these communities that have never had running water. And that's how you build trust.
Okay. Well, we're going to take another break because we're barreling through some time here. We'll come back and we'll get to our next round. We'll be right back with the county seat in just a minute. Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today with Governor Cox, who's taken a half hour to talk with us, and I really do appreciate that. We ended the last segment talking about Navajo Nation and water, but that just only portends a larger issue of the Colorado River Compact, the upper water. Everybody says it's been over-allocated for years. But how do we address that problem, particularly when the Ute Nation is going to lay claim to a lot of that, and how do we navigate, no pun intended, how do we navigate the upper River Compact?
Well, we are getting closer to the renegotiation of that compact, and so we're working really hard as a state to get ready for that. In fact, there was some legislation that we passed this year, forming a commission here in the state of Utah, putting I think $10 million that we put behind that commission to do this work. I've got meetings scheduled. I've already reached out to some of the governors from the upper basin to strategize about how we're going to do this. Look, if you look at the water allocation, it has been misallocated, but it's been the lower basin that's gotten the lion's share of that. We have not gotten in fact, we still have a significant amount of water in reserves, including water that is assigned to the tribes.
Right, but then the argument would be, and I've heard this argument, is that yeah, it's over-allocated, but that's where all the people are, and so it should go to those southern states because they need it more. How do you address that challenge?
Well, it is a challenge, and that's why we've got the best and brightest in Utah working on this. That's why we're strategizing with the other states to make sure that we have the best arguments and the right arguments. And look, that is important. Where there are people, there needs to be water. But we are the fastest growing state in the nation, not California. We are the fastest growing state in the nation, which means that as we project outwards, we're going to need that water. We also have projects for that water, right? We already have that water assigned. We know where it's going to go. And so we need to make sure that we're not taken advantage of, which has happened in the past. And that's why we've got great attorneys and great legal minds, and we've got some of our water buffaloes that are going to be working on this.
Water buffalo, I like that. Yeah. Do you sometimes kind of wish that like the Southern Utah pipeline that kind of got stalled maybe had progressed along a little bit more?
Oh, I absolutely do. I've been very supportive of it for a long, long time, and that's the difficulty of working with the federal government. I mean, these issues we've talked about are all intertwined, right? Because you have to cross all of these federal lands, which means there's a NEPA process that we have to go through, and those take years and years and years, which is a huge problem and something we're working on with the federal government as well. But it just slows everything down, and so nobody's at fault. Nobody's dropped the ball. There's no reason. It's just the natural progression of these huge projects. It takes decades to do.
But some of the lower counties that were going to chip in on that project backed out,
right.
And so it's become a smaller project borne by fewer counties.
Yeah, and then that happens, right? It's happened with the Central Utah Project, which has been ongoing. There have been pipes in the ground now for a couple decades, and we've had counties pull out of that as well. So that's understandable. Unfortunately, the federal government hasn't funded these things recently like they used to. They used to do these big water projects, and now they don't. So that's a part of it. But again, our hope is if the federal government's just throwing around money, as they appear to be, on infrastructure, there's no more important infrastructure than water.
Well, for the West, that's for sure. So in one of the sessions I sat in today, nuclear energy came back up, and energy is a big problem in Utah. You have campaigned on all of the above portfolio. What's your thought about nuclear and some of the headway they're making in these compact reactors?
Yeah, the micro reactors. I'm very supportive. Look, if we talk about clean energy and the need for clean energy, nuclear is it, right? I mean, it was popular once. Of course, there were some setbacks. Technology has changed greatly. If it can be done safely, there's no reason we shouldn't be pursuing nuclear. So I'm very supportive of that. Again, done safely and done the right way. I think it's going to be an important part of our portfolio as a nation moving forward.
How do you fuel that if the federal policies have closed down all the access to uranium?
Well, you don't, and that's why again we have to get the federal government to really understand that the concerns they have with emissions, right, and the reason they're so down on coal and other types, that even natural gas to some extent. Well, then what are the alternatives, and what are the alternatives that are efficient and that can help provide for people and then keep our air cleaner? Well, nuclear is the obvious answer to that, but of course you have to have the enriched uranium to be able to supply to these reactors, and so that's where we just need a common sense approach, and common sense is harder and harder to find in Washington D.C. these days.
No, no doubt about it. What surprised you the most? I mean, you sat right across the lobby from Governor Herbert for what, 7 years, 7.5 years. And you watched his office. He didn't seem to exclude you very much from state government. You weren't like a token, and so you were really engaged. What has surprised you the most now that you have the reins to the buggy?
I don't know that there have been any surprises, because Governor Herbert was so wonderful and did include me in everything that happened. So I really did know what I was getting into. But I think the surprising thing was a pandemic. I didn't expect that when I announced I was running for governor. I think, though, the surprising thing has been the vitriol with, and even that I've talked about. I've talked about it for years, but just when I think it can't get worse, it tends to get worse. And the anger and the mean-spiritedness with which we are treating each other as a society. And so that's not a great thing. I do believe Utah's better than the rest of the country. I think we've proven that over and over again.
You've taken a few shots yourself.
I also think Utah's getting worse, and that's what worries me.
Yeah, I applaud you for your comments today, talking to the cities and towns, and your remarks. You said, "Look, I know there's some of you out there that hate me."
Wow, they're words that I see every day. People tell me they hate me every day. So, and that's where, again, that's not most Utahns. That's not even a minority of Utahns. It's a super minority of Utahns. But it's incumbent on all of us to do better in the way we talk to each other, the way we disagree. I'm not saying we shouldn't disagree. We should disagree passionately. That's important. But we can disagree without the hate and without making it personal.
So there were a lot of grudges that came out of the campaign and the election process. And what is your message to those people who are out there that are not really happy? How do you fix that?
Yeah, well, my job is not to make everyone happy. That's not. I think if you're a governor who tries to make everyone happy, you're not going to be a very good governor. So I'm not out there pretending like I'm going to make everyone happy. I am who I am. I've always been that way. I stand by it. If you don't like me, you get to vote for someone else, and that's okay, right? That's fine. That's what this process is about. What I will say is I have great relationships with everybody I ran against, and I mean, so much so that, in fact, I've asked them to be involved. Many of them were involved in our transition process. I've worked to appoint Governor Huntsman to the World Trade Center board. So we don't hold these grudges. We work very closely together, and that's what's important. And look, I hope you'll give me a chance. I hope you won't listen to the rhetoric from others, but you'll listen to what we're actually saying. More importantly, you'll look at what we're actually doing and accomplishing. And if you still don't like me, that's okay. You can vote for someone else next time, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
So for some of those people that are initiating the rhetoric, is your door open?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we meet with people all the time who disagree with us, and sometimes they change my mind, and that's what's important. I think there is a mistake that people make when they win. Then they only surround themselves with people who are just like them and who see the world exactly the same way and who tell them what they want to hear. That's very unhealthy. That's not who I am. We have spirited debates with my cabinet, with my senior staff. They debate each other. We listen, we learn, and we hear from constituents all the time. And sometimes they're right. Sometimes I think they're not right. Sometimes they change my mind, sometimes they don't. And that's the beauty of this incredible idea that America was founded on, that the people hold the power. And if we don't like the person, then we get to get rid of them in 4 years. But also, if you agree, let us know. It's always nice to hear from people that like us.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time. We've used up the half hour, and I think that you've got people over there that want to pull you away to your next appointment. We appreciate you joining us for the county seat. It's very important. This dialogue really needs to continue. And we appreciate the governor for taking the time to come share these thoughts with us.
Thank you, Chad. It's always good to be with you.
All right. Are we allowed to do that yet?
I'm doing it.
Okay, very good.
So.
We'll see you next week on the county seat. Thank you for watching The County Seat. Be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications to keep up to date on the program and happenings around Utah.